We're going to continue with Total Financial Solutions Safer Money Hour. I'm Arif Halaby along with Jeff Girard. Common misconceptions about your IRA. IRA, what is an IRA or an individual retirement account? Well, look, the name itself will tell us all that we need to know because we're talking about when it comes to an IRA. Jeff, often people will say, oh, can I take my IRA and merge it with my wife's IRA? Well, the I means something.
Well, it means individual, and basically this is something that's tied to you specifically, and it's tracked by your Social Security number. So you'll have control of it. You'll benefit from the account. It goes on your side of the taxes, and basically this is something that begins and ends with you for the life of this type of account. So this is an arrangement with you and the IRS. And if you actually look at the IRS code, we typically call an IRA an individual retirement account, but it's actually an individual retirement arrangement, which is just basically the IRS allowing you to put money into an account, and then it has some special tax treatments and some favorability there. So that's really where it comes in. This kind of demystification, if you will, of the IRA is really what it's all about, because there are certain things that are associated with it, certain rules, and you have to abide by them. Otherwise, you can get kind of stung here and there with a penalty or two.
So like with every single rule, there's an exception. Are you ready for two big exceptions? With the IRA, individual retirement account, it's your money, your account, everything that's moving down the road is yours. The first caveat or exception to the rule is when you divorce. If you separate and you are husband and wife and one of you has, let's say, a greater amount in your retirement accounts and the other one has a less amount, and through the divorce process, the lawyers will sit down and divvy up your account and say, okay, you get $200,000 and you get $100,000. Well, you're going to have to balance that out through something called a quadro, QDRO. That's the acronym, if you will. It's called a Qualified Domestic Relations Order. Okay, so if you've been divorced, you know what a quadro is. Through the quadro, it allows one form to be filled out and for an IRA to be renamed as long as it was a husband or a wife on the other side of it, okay? So that's one exception. Another exception is if you inherit it.
That's right. And then a trust would come into play in some cases, but if you inherit an account as an individual, let's say I have an IRA and I pass away and now it goes to somebody else. They didn't earn money and put that money into that account. They've basically taken it over because I'm not around to own the account anymore. So that beneficiary IRA has a special designation and now another set of rules. The IRA had a set of rules when I owned it, and then as the beneficiary takes it over, there's a different set of rules there. Still has some tax deferred ability. We're going to talk about that a little bit as well. But basically what happens is now there is a kind of a clock ticking, so to speak, on this account. So a few things change, but the money in the account stays the same. Nothing would change there. The taxation of the money when it goes in or comes out doesn't change. Now you just have a different person that assumes it. So that's just kind of the difference there.
Yeah, so those are for beneficiaries that are not spouse related. If it's a spousal beneficiary, as Jeff was saying, there's some rules that are associated with it. But generally speaking, it becomes yours. So a husband passes away, the wife inherits it, and it becomes, in some cases, she can even merge that retirement account into her own retirement account, and it becomes hers. But that happens under the passing of one of the beneficiaries. If it is a non-spouse beneficiary, then it's exactly how Jeff was laying it out. Now, why is this important? Because sometimes some of these misconceptions when it comes to IRAs is that you can merge your IRAs with your spouse. Well, we're telling you that that's not the way it works. The individual part of it, or the I of the IRA, doesn't allow that to happen. Other things, Jeff, sometimes people will say, I want to invest in your IRA. What kind of rate of return does your IRAs make?
Well, as we explained earlier, the IRA is just a description of the relationship of the money and the Internal Revenue Service. Okay, so let's simplify that. If you put money into a savings account, that's your money, whatever institution you choose, if it's a savings account, a checking account, a CD at the bank, let's just go to the simplest form. But if you title it as an IRA, it can still be a savings account, it can still be a CD. If you choose investments, it can still be those things. So if you kind of think of it as a nut, right? There's the shell, and then you have basically the meat inside, which is the actual control the nut. So you can have different types of nuts, correct? I mean, we have all different types. So if you think about all of the different types, what do they all have in common?
I've never really heard it put that way.
Well, they have a shell, and the shell is actually the wrapper around the nut. And whatever flavor that is, whatever type of vehicle, as we've called it in the financial industry, you can have, investments, savings, different types of vehicles. But that wrapper is the IRA, and it doesn't matter what's underneath inside that shell. What the IRS cares about is the wrapper itself.
Yeah, the designation, whether it's called a SEP IRA, so that's for self-employed persons, or an individual retirement account, or a 401k, that's what Jeff's talking about, right? All of those wrappers have different rules. The IRS, how much you can put in, when you can put it in, when you can take it out, how much you can take out. There's all sorts of rules. The underlying investment or the underlying place where you put the money, that determines the risk, the rates of return, the fees, the licenses of the person who's going to offer it to you. So, for example, we are not tellers at a bank, so I can't do a savings account IRA or a CD, but they may not be able to do a fixed index annuity if they're not insurance licensed, right? So it depends on where you go. It's the location, it's the regulatory rules, guidelines, all of that. That's that underlying investment. It's a little confusing. I don't know why it has to be this confusing. Mm-hmm. Why we would even need so many different accounts. But unfortunately, it's the way it goes for the moment.
Well, when you think about it, different people telling stories about their retirement accounts or some of their investment experience with respect to retirement accounts, that's kind of where people, I think, get the idea that IRAs make money or IRAs always lose money or, something like that. I think it's those little nuances that people pick up from some of their relatives or the folks around them. But, something else that's interesting is how many different things you can buy with your IRA because they've opened up the regulatory side has opened up a wide range of places you can actually invest or save your money. So I think that kind of adds to some of the complexity there.
Yeah, when the mutual fund and stock market world were the ones that helped create the 401ks. In other words, they went to the government, whether it was whose idea it was first. But at the end, they narrowed where you could invest this money, and what a gold mine. Talk about taking candy from a baby. When the retirement 401k world was set up so that they would auto withdraw from your checking account, from your paycheck, before you even saw the money.
How convenient.
Take those dollars out, put them into a place, have it to work with. In other words, it's like a built-in customer base. Every other week, they're getting money dumped in where they can fee those dollars and are virtually not unregulated. That's not even close. They are regulated, but unsupervised, right? I mean, when you have a retirement account at work, are you asking about all the nuances, the risk, the fees? What's my overlap? Do I have too much in one place? Right? You're not asking any of that stuff because most of you don't know. You're busy and good at what you do. So it became a very big place where these dollars were sitting and became this bucket that allowed people to go in and fee it. Today, there's a much wider range of options that you have of where you can invest your retirement money. All right, this is important. You can have more than one IRA. You can have 10 IRAs. You just can't contribute more than the annual amount, the fixed amount per year. And that depends on your age.
That's right. And we have to assume a few things, that you also have earned income. So the only way you can really put money into an IRA is to have earned income, whether it's W-2 income or 1099 income. So you might be an employee or self-employed or a business owner. Something like that has to happen where you trade your time for money, and then it's able to be, that's what we call earned income. So it wouldn't be something like someone that's retired and that may have pension income or a rental income or investment income where they didn't go trade their time. Actually, their investments or their money is making money for them. That is a different type. That's called unearned income. So they are not allowed to put new monies into this IRA. So the IRA, when you have earned income, you put the money in, and as Arif was saying, there's a maximum. You can't just go and say, this year I think I did really well. I want to put $100,000 in. You can't do that. If you're putting in new money, there's a limit, and it's set by the federal government. And they say, basically, you can't put more than $5,500 $500 under current law. If you're age 49 or under.
Yeah.
But if you're older than that, there's something else that's a part of that.
It's called a catch-up provision, which means you're allowed to add an extra $1,000. Now, most of you are voters, or at least potential voters. I need you to ask yourself, why is it that the IRS limits these dollars? Why don't they just allow you to put in as much as you want? If it's pre-tax money, great, you get the tax write-off on it. If you don't want the tax write-off, and in fact, instead you want to pay taxes on the money, then that's called a Roth, R-O-T-H, Roth IRA. And that gives you the option to put money into that account post-tax, meaning just like the $20 in your purse or your pocket, you put it in, it sits there, it grows, you do not pay taxes on the interest, and under current law, when you withdraw it, you don't pay taxes on the interest. So you need to ask yourself as a voter, why is it that they are limiting these dollars? Just let me put in as much as I want. If I want to, and then look, if I do well and I come out at the end at age 60, whatever, and you say, hey, Arif, you actually did better than we thought, you're not going to be able to receive Social Security. All right, look, whatever that number is must mean that I have millions of dollars saved, so great. Or you can say, hey, listen, I know you were allowed to put in a lot of money, you took some big chances and you lost it, but we're going to give you that minimum safety net. It's called Social Security. I think that would allow Social Security to live a little longer, because it's called a means test. If you're Warren Buffett or Bill O'Reilly or Chris Matthews, any of these news talk people, they are worth millions of dollars, and yet they still receive Social Security, which means they're drawing from the bucket of the person who is living on every $1,500 that comes in the door, because that's their life.
That's right.
Now, I don't know what the numbers are. If you say, oh gosh, Arif, there's so many of those wealthy people, and so by restricting their Social Security, it's going to make a big difference. I don't know if it will. But I do know that if you're going to tell me that as a person that my cost for being part of society is I have to put money in a bucket so that we can all collectively share from that dollar later, I get it. I'm not going to be happy of paying for something I'm never going to get, but if you tell me that's part of the society and I believe it and you're going to manage that money well, it would be a bitter pill to swallow to pay for something I'm never going to receive, but I would be okay with it. As long as everybody in the system is the same. And you might say, look, I don't know what the number is, $150,000 in retirement. If you make more than that, then you don't receive Social Security. Well, great, maybe that's the number. Maybe it's $100,000, maybe it's $300,000, I don't know. But that's the way that these kind of numbers are going to last. When you have an individual retirement account, you are forced to start withdrawing that money regardless of what you think. Whether you need it or not, maybe you have a pension, maybe you have enough Social Security to live on, your home is paid off, it doesn't matter. Your individual retirement account, whether you're working or not, you have to pull out, it's about 3.65%, so about 4%, something like that, per year, and it goes up every year after that. And here's how it works. It's the year following the year, you turn 70 and a half. Follow me on that? Here, let me give you a good example. I know you're thinking, yeah, this is a little crazy. Okay, so I'm born in March. So my birthday is March, but that means I would, God willing, turn 70 years old in March. So the same year I turned 70 and a half. So that means by March of the next year, by April 1st of the next year is when I have to have my first payment out. Okay? Here's my wife is born in October. So she would turn 70 in October, 70 and a half the next year in April. Then by April 1st of the next year is when she has to have her first payment out. So if you're born in the second half of the year, you get a little bit of an extra grace. Now you might say, Arif, I'm so confused. I get it. Most people are. You're not alone. So think about it like this. If you have an account that's an IRA at a bank or an institution, pay attention to the letters. Because your financial advisor, financial professional, whoever's in your life that's kind of handling these accounts, they should be bugging you. We are on the phone. You are receiving letters and emails from us. Because, Jeff, I'm sure the government is okay with us not doing that. But do you think they might maybe have a fee that they might charge us?
Well, maybe that's the testament to why it's so confusing, because they're hoping a few people will trip up. Well, and if you take a look at the penalty, the number is astronomical. 50%. That's right, not 15, 50%. So basically half of what you were supposed to take out is what you have to give up in a fee. So if you were supposed to pull out $10,000, your fee would be $5,000. And it's not uncommon that a number that high exists, because there are people that do well.
And the $10,000, Jeff, is taxable.
That's right. So you were supposed to pay tax on that money. And that's basically the idea here. And we're talking about a tax shelter with an IRA. You defer some of your income from being taxed today, because we all have the idea that, hey, when we're in retirement, we're going to be paying less in taxes. Well, that could be challenged, certainly, with the way we're spending money and taxing money, and where we're going as an administration, as a country. But let's table that for another conversation. So with this idea, you have to pull the money out at 70.5, because the government says, look, you deferred all that money all those years. It's now time to pay the piper. So we need you to take the money out of this account, and they structure it in a way where they hope to take out most of it they hope you take out most of it before you pass away. And that's why there's that formula, and it increases over time. And basically, they're now getting their tax revenues that you deferred.
And why this is important is because in your plan, if you don't have that extra $5,000 to pay a penalty, the IRS goes in, pulls from your retirement account an additional $5,000, and then taxes you again, which means your overall loss to your retirement account is somewhere between $12,000 and $15,000 when you're supposed to have taken out $10,000. Okay,
crazy.
So be careful about that. That's a part of the process here. Let's go over maybe one or two more IRAs, because people thought, oh, well, if I'm still working, I don't have to take money out. Your 401k, I'm going to give you a little trick. This actually matters a lot, and maybe not for you because you may not be 70 or 75, but your parent or grandparent might be, okay? Here's one of the tricks to avoid that penalty and to avoid having to pull those dollars out. If they are still working at a job or a business in which they own the business, but they own less than 5%, it might be 5% or less, or 4.9, I don't know, but it's around 5%. So if they own less than that of the business and they have a 401k plan, they can roll over their IRA into the 401k plan. And now they pay no taxes on the money. They're not forced to withdraw it. It sits there in the account. It is not a part of their earned income, and they can continue to defer it, whether they want it to be there for their grandchildren or maybe for health reasons later. Maybe they're going to need it for whatever. They do not have to take that money out. Isn't that exciting? Mm-hmm. And if they want to borrow money from it, no tax. They have to pay it back, but you can take out up to 50% or $50,000, whatever is lower in your account. So they work at a job, they work part-time, they take that 401k money, the individual retirement account. They're like, but I don't need it. I'm working part-time. Maybe you have some rental properties, maybe you have a pension, and you don't want to pull money from your IRA. Consider taking that IRA, putting it into your 401k, and now, as long as you own less than 5% of that business, you are now in a position to not be forced to take that money out. Isn't that exciting? If you want to use it, you can. You could pull out $50,000. And
that is exciting, because how many folks are we seeing nowadays that are age 70 or older? They're still active. They're still working. They say, look, I don't want to retire. I want to keep active and healthy. And this is part of who I am, is to continue working. And yet they have this 401k account maybe that they don't have to pull money out of, but the IRA, they have to take the money out, and that triggers taxes, which if they're earning income still, that money could be taxed higher, because now the money they had to take out contributes to that. So it's kind of a little trick or a little secret that people are using when they put it into the 401k so that they don't have that extra tax bill.
Yeah, there's some options here. When we come back, we're going to continue with your retirement accounts. What about naming your trust as a beneficiary? What are some of the pros and cons there? Should you do that? And when does it make sense? Because remember, every rule has an exception. We're going to get into that when we come back. I'm Arif Halaby, along with Jeff Girard, on Total Financial Solutions Safer Money Hour. We'll be right back.